Welcome to the EZCODE Projects series, Padlock video number 2. In this video, we'll begin creating the padlock using HTML and CSS. If you have not done so already, please complete the previous EZCODE Projects Padlock series videos. For those of you that have done so, let's begin. Open the Padlock project directory in VS Code. Mine is in Projects, EZCODE. I'll just open the padlock, open. Inside the area of the template we pre-marked with our greeting, let's create the HTML portion of the padlock in the view HTML file. So if you remember, here's the template that we created, and then we have this comment, everything goes here. We can leave the comment in for now. We'll create a new line, and we'll create a div. And we'll give it a property of class equals padlock. And then VS Code will auto-complete that for us. We're going to break into an enter here to get some more space. Now we're nested inside the div with class padlock, and we'll create two divs now. One div, class clasp, and we're not going to break into this one, but we're just going to copy it and make a new one where here we can say body. And if you remember, those are the words we gave to the pieces of the locks in the first video. Now we have all of our closing tags. Let's make sure. Padlock here. And another way of making sure is if we go to a tag, we can usually see the closing tag that it has. Same here and here. All right, let's save our work. And now we're going to open up this file, the view HTML file, in the browser. Open file, find out where it is. In our source view HTML, there it is. We're going to open it. Notice how we can see the elements. Well, first we have to open up the developer window. So let's do that. And now we can notice if we can see the elements in the developer window. And if we open this up, we can see the padlock div and its two child divs, which are siblings of one another, clasp and body. But there is nothing in the browser window. None of the items have any width or height. So they're here hiding on us. So let's first start by giving our padlock some fixed dimensions. Open the style CSS file and add the following. So let's go back to VS Code. We'll open up our style CSS. And again, we're just starting this new project, so we're going to put the CSS below here in the project CSS. And we're going to do the first wrapper class, which is, once again, it's a class, so we're going to put the dot notation in front of it in our CSS file. Two of these opening curly braces and closing ones, and then we're just going to type in width, and we're going to say 100 and px for pixel, and then height, we're going to give it 150 px. Okay, so let's save our work. And then we'll go and we'll refresh the browser. Go here and we'll refresh the browser. And note that there is still nothing showing. But when we examine the DOM, we can see there is a shape. So padlocks, again, we can see there's a box there. Let's double check by temporarily giving the shape a color. So just to make sure, I like to do this from time to time. You can do background and add a color. Except for we're in the view container, so we colored the whole thing. So let's get back out of that. Let's reselect padlock, and we'll go back in there. And just for a quick shorthand, I usually just say background. But what I really mean and what I do in my CSS files is I do background hyphen color. But now we can see to the right, let's see, we did that one, and we can see what we're working with. So just a quick way of adding some color to see something you might not see without highlighting it by hovering over it. So in the style CSS file, let's add some more properties to the inner elements of the padlock. So we'll go back to VS Code. And what we're going to do here is we're in the padlock. And what we're going to do is continue to keep the classes inside of this one. So there's a clasp, curly braces, height, 45. Now instead of pixels, we're going to go percent because we want the clasp to be 45% of the padlock, which has a height of 150 px. But the 150 px, guess how much you can occupy? Up to 100% of that. So 45% will be the clasp, and the body, not the body element, but the body class that we put on the padlock, is going to get a height of 55%. Okay, let's save. And in the browser, let's add some background color to both elements. So we'll go look at those again real quick. We're going to refresh now that we're there. We have the padlock, the clasp, you can see now, and the body. So in the body, let's give it a background color. So we're going to go here and say, in this case, I am going to do the hyphen color. And we're going to use a known browser color called gold. All right. And then the clasp. Let's go to the clasp and we'll give it a background color of gray. All right, we do have two colors now. We can see them. They are occupied inside the padlock. And you can see we did take up 100% of the 150 px. So if we changed padlock for some reason and kept moving it, each one of the percents of the clasp in the body would take the correct percentage. So we're going to leave it at 150 where it was, but you can play with it anytime you want. You can use those up and down arrows to manipulate it. And now let's add the following here in the browser to the clasp. So let's go to the clasp and make sure it's selected. We have it highlighted, we can see that, and we're going to add a few more things. We're going to give it a border style of solid, a border width of 13 px, and a border color of silver. Once again, that's a known color in the browser. And now we can change the border width property value to turn on and off any side we wish. So there's a bit of, some of the CSS properties have a shorthand. So I could go on here and say border left, border right, border top, border bottom. Or I can just go in here and say, in the border width, I can specify each one. We always start at the top, should be that one. So we're going to go in there, we're going to say 13 px again. And then we're going to say 0, and we'll go over where these are here in a second, and then 13 px. So what we've done is, here, we're going to grow that one. You can see it's at the top. The top border is the first one. And it depends on the order and how many there are here. If I just did 2, the first value would be the top and bottom. And if I did the second value only with the first value, then it would be the right and left. And if we put 3 on there, then there's just a myriad of ways that we can manipulate the borders and other CSS properties this way. So here, what we've done is we've turned on the top one, the right one, the bottom one is 0, and the left one is 13 px. Now we're going to turn off the clasp background color. All right, let's get rid of that gray now. And look, we're starting to get close to the lock now. Let's add the changes we made in the browser to each element's class in our style CSS. So just to make this a little bit quicker, you can just copy the bulk of them that are in clasp. Don't forget we put a body here. You can't copy both, but we'll go back over to clasp and we'll say clasp. There you go. You got some there. And we can go back and copy the rest as well. And let's go back there and we're going to go to the body. Okay. Now, what do you think we're going to do now, as we always do? We're going to save our changes, and we're going to refresh the browser. One, it's going to clear out what we had in here and load what we did change. And we want to make sure that's all there. Everything stayed the same. That's great. That's a good sign. Let's shape up our lock a bit more. Let's go back to the style CSS and add a few more properties. So we'll go back to VS Code, and we're just going to go in clasp and give it a new line, and we're going to say border radius. And what do you think that one does? So once again, we have the ability to manipulate each side of the square here. So we're going to say top one, top right, it should start at is 50%, or top left, I guess. And then 50% again, and then we're going to go 0, 0. And then down here, we're going to say the same thing. We're going to give it a border radius of 5px. So let's save our changes and refresh the browser. Hey, look at that. Notice how the clasp is a bit wide for the lock body. So if you remember from our visual, these were in a little bit more, so they weren't riding on the side of the lock like that. Let's reduce its width a bit. So let's go to the clasp again right here, and we're going to tell it to instead give a width of 80%. Note how the clasp is now larger than the body, yet we tried to reduce it by 20%. When we added the width property to the clasp, the browser does not include the width of the borders. So to tell the browser to include the border in the width calculation, we have to add another property. This is a good one to remember. It is box sizing border box. Now we can see that the lock is taking up 80% of this width. This should be 20% left. And let's now center our clasp to the body by adding a margin right and margin left auto. So this is a handy trick, if you will. If you want to center something easily, we can say, hey, margin left, and we can say auto, and we can say margin right. And in this way, they kind of fight against each other to keep whatever we have centered. We can do this for all kinds of different things. So now that we have it centered and we have a really good looking lock now, let's add our work to the style CSS file. So once again, we know what we have here and what we're using. We're just going to copy that, and we're going to go back over to our clasp in the style CSS, and we're just going to paste it in there, make sure everything is straight and lined up. I'm going to do just a few things real quick. I'm going to put my width up here, and I'm going to also move my margin right below here. And this is just a way of feel, however you like to kind of keep things together. I like to keep my border stuff together, my width and height and margins, etc. So once again, we'll save our work, and guess what? We're going to refresh the browser. Okay, our clasp is still centered. That's great. Really good looking padlock now. Nice work. And guess what? We've completed the first iteration of the HTML portion of our project. In the next video, we'll continue our work by adding a way to unlock our padlock using HTML and JavaScript. If you enjoyed this video, click like and then subscribe buttons to get notifications of new content. Thank you for exploring programming with me, and I'll see you in the next video.